Most men don't consciously decide to become silent. It happens gradually. They learn over time that staying quiet feels safer than explaining, that holding things in that feels more controlled than expressing them, that not reacting earns approval, or at least avoids consequences, and eventually silence starts to feel like strength. But what I want to explore today is something subtle and uncomfortable, because a lot of what men call strength is actually emotional containment, learned too early and carried too long. This video isn't about telling men to talk more. It's about helping men understand why silence became the default and what it quietly costs. Most men confuse silence with strength. They believe that if they don't react, don't explain, and don't show emotion, they're being grounded. But silence isn't strength by default. Often it's, protection. Don't go quiet because they're calm. They go quiet because they don't feel safe being seen. Silence becomes a way to stay in control, to avoid misunderstanding, to avoid conflict, to avoid exposure. But strength isn't the absence of expression. It's the ability to stay present without disappearing. If your silence is helping you survive, that makes sense. But survival isn't the same as strength. And confusing the two slowly disconnects you, from others and from yourself. Let's talk about where this starts. Most boys are rewarded early for being composed. You fall down, you're told to get up. You feel hurt, you're told not to make a big deal out of it. You're confused. You're told to figure it out, not because anyone meant harm, but because composure is often mistaken for maturity. And over time, a lesson forms beneath the surface. If you don't speak, you don't create problems. If you don't react, you stay in control. If you don't explain yourself, no one can use it against you. Silence becomes a strategy, and strategies feel strong, especially when they work. But strategies don't stay neutral. They shape identity. Eventually, many men stop asking, so what do I feel? And start asking, what should I not say? And that shift, this is like subtle, it's and powerful. Like a man who confuses silence with strength often looks steady from the outside, and he doesn't argue much. He doesn't complain. He doesn't ask for reassurance. He rarely explains his inner world. People describe him as calm, low drama, independent, but internally, something else is happening. He's monitoring himself constantly, editing reactions before they form, swallowing responses before they reach his mouth. That isn't strength, that's management, and management takes energy. A lot of men believe strength means staying unaffected, but real strength isn't emotional absence, it's emotional capacity. Can you feel frustration without shutting down? Can you feel hurt without becoming defensive? Can you feel misunderstood without withdrawing? If silence is the only way you feel stable, your stability is fragile. And because life doesn't stop pressing. Strength isn't being untouched. It's being able to stay engaged without losing yourself. Silence can look strong, but when it's driven by fear, it slowly isolates. And isolation is not resilience. It's distance dressed up as control. Here's where things get complicated. Many men don't feel angry when they go silent. They feel regulated. Quiet feels clean, contained, predictable. Talking feels messy, uncertain, risky. So silence becomes the place where the nervous system relaxes. And that's important to acknowledge, because for many men, silence once protected them. It helped them survive environments where being open led to ridicule, punishment, or dismissal. That matters. But what protected you once can limit you later. Strength that depends on withdrawal eventually costs connection. Let me give you a small example. A man is in a relationship. His partner brings up something that bothered her. He listens, nods, says very little. He believes he's being mature. Inside, he's thinking, if I explain myself, it'll escalate. If I speak, I might say the wrong thing. If I stay quiet, this will pass. From his perspective, silence equals control. From her perspective, silence feels like absence, not safety, not calm, distance. And slowly she stops sharing. Not because he's weak, but because he's unavailable. Silence can feel like control, but control isn't the same as connection. Many men go quiet to prevent conflict, not realizing silence is the conflict. When you don't explain, people fill in the gaps. When you don't respond, others assume indifference. Strength isn't staying silent to avoid discomfort. Strength is staying present when discomfort appears. A grounded man doesn't disappear emotionally. He remains available even when he doesn't have the perfect words. Silence used as armor protects you from exposure, but it also blocks intimacy. And intimacy requires presence, not perfection. There's another layer most men don't talk about. Many men fear that if they start explaining, they won't know how to stop. They worry about emotional flooding, about losing composure, about becoming something they don't recognize. So silence feels safer than vulnerability, but safety achieved through avoidance is temporary. Eventually, the cost shows up in relationships that feel shallow, in friendships that never deepen, in a persistent sense of being unseen, even when surrounded by people. Here's an important distinction. Silence isn't bad. Unconscious silence is. A confident man can choose silence. A guarded man relies on it. One is grounded. The other is afraid of impact. And from the outside, they look identical. That's why this confusion persists. Not all silence is weakness, but silence driven by fear isn't strength. When you stay quiet to avoid being misunderstood, you're not calm. You're cautious. True strength doesn't require hiding. It doesn't require emotional disappearance. It's the ability to remain open without collapsing or over-explaining. A strong man can say, I don't know how to put this into words yet, and stay present anyway. Strength isn't silence. It's self-trust. And self-trust allows expression without panic. This is where many men feel something shift. They realize they've been holding a posture, not building a foundation. A posture takes effort. A foundation holds naturally. If staying silent feels exhausting, that's information, not a failure. It suggests you've been carrying tension, not strength. Let's pause. We'll have a pause here for a moment. If any of this feels familiar, not intellectually, but internally, just notice that. No judgment, no fixing. And if this kind of clarity feels useful, you're welcome to stay connected to the channel. This work isn't about motivation. It's about helping men understand themselves without force or performance. Real strength has a quiet quality. It's not now, but it's not empty. It's present. A strong man doesn't vanish when emotions arise. He doesn't perform stoicism. He doesn't hide behind restraint. He trusts himself enough to engage. That trust wasn't built by never feeling. It was built by learning he could feel without losing control. If your silence feels heavy, it's not strength. Strength doesn't require effortful restraint. It doesn't feel tense or compressed. Real strength is relaxed presence. It allows emotion without chaos, expression without collapse. When men confuse silence with strength, they don't become grounded. They become distant. Strength isn't about saying nothing. It's about knowing you can stay even when it's uncomfortable, and that changes everything. So what does real strength look like in practice? It looks like a man who can respond instead of withdraw, who can say, that affected me without shame, who can pause without disappearing. It's flexibility, not hardness. You don't lose strength by being human. You lose it by abandoning yourself. And if this lands close to home, that's awareness, not weakness. Strength isn't built by silence. It's built by self-trust. Every time you stay quiet to avoid exposure, you trade connection for control. But control that costs authenticity isn't strength. It's armor. And armor isolates. Real strength doesn't hide. It stays present, calmly, honestly, without needing to disappear. Let's close here. If this helped you see silence differently, let it settle. And you don't need to change overnight. You don't need to speak more than feels right. Just start noticing why silence shows up and what it's protecting. And if you want more conversations like this, calm, grounded, and focused on how men actually experience the world, you're welcome to stay connected. Because strength isn't something you perform, it's something you inhabit. And that makes all the difference.